Good morning, church. It is so good to see you this morning. I am so happy that you've come to be with us. For those of you who are attending in person, I applaud you. I'm so happy that you're here. You make preaching so much better for me when you're here. So thank you for being here. For those of you who are watching online, I appreciate you so much. Please continue to be safe, especially if your health is compromised or you have a reason that you need to be staying home. Do so. Don't try to come unless you're ready and you know that that's a part of God's will for your life. One of the things that I've been dealing with here lately is trying to find creative ways to get people engaged. And one of the things that I did is, you saw, if you got here about 10:15, you saw this morning, I got Bryce Reed and a few other people engaged in making a video about the parable of the talents. Was that not good this morning? Can we give Bryce a hand for that? If you want to congratulate him in person, you'll have to wait for him to come out of hiding. He's back up there running our live stream right now, and Bryce has been doing a lot of good things, and we just really appreciate him so much and appreciate Scarlett and Noah and Tim. Tim, that was just awesome what you did. I just can't believe it, so appreciate that so much. I've been doing a lot of thinking and studying about things that are going on in the world. I probably have watched more videos than I have in my entire lifetime on the internet. I mean, it just seems like every day I see something or I hear about something, and I go and I watch the different videos and listening and trying to see what's going on in the world today and the way people are thinking. And one of the things that I've seen over and over again when it comes to the racial tension that is going on today is the idea of the Good Samaritan. It's a very simple story, but it is so permeates what's going on with us today. And those of you who are here, those of you listening online, you know the story of the Good Samaritan. It's not a new one, but here's a man that crossed racial boundaries in order to help somebody. And there's three things that I found that he did. Is number one, he was willing to be inconvenienced. He was willing to be inconvenienced. And I think that's very important for us today, because a lot of us don't want to walk across the street to help somebody else. And we need to learn to be inconvenienced. The second thing that I noticed about that story of the Good Samaritan is he was willing to give some time. He was willing to be inconvenienced, and he was willing to give some time. And for a lot of us, I know even myself, time is valuable to me. And when I'm giving time to somebody, I would rather give money than time sometimes. But giving time to somebody is just really important if you're going to show love. So you're going to be inconvenienced if you're going to be a Good Samaritan. You're going to give some of your time, and you're going to give some of your money. It's going to cost something if you're going to be a Good Samaritan. And the reason why I'm telling you this is not to just give you 3 good sermon notes this morning. By the way, that has nothing to do with my sermon. If you took notes, great. If you didn't, it's fine. I'm going to give everybody in this room an opportunity today to be a Good Samaritan. Eddie Harper, the preacher that's going to be here on the 6th of September, he and I have been trying to get together for a couple of years now. We have a mutual friend in Eric Dawson. He's been busy. I've been busy. I never reached out to him. He never reached out to me, but because of the backpack thing that we were doing down there and giving away backpacks and things like that, he and I met for lunch. The first time we were supposed to meet, he stood me up. He had food poisoning, so I guess that's a good excuse. But the second time we got together, and what I found from this guy, and I cannot wait for you to meet him, is he is truly a brother to me. He is truly a brother to me. He and I hit it off like, as Forrest Gump, peas and carrots. We just hit it off so well. And when we were down there, we were doing the backpacks and things like that. I dropped off the grill, and I was there for the event, and we were dropping off. I got to spend more time with him, got to know him, got to spend just some more quality time with him, look around the building, and I was noticing there was some construction going on there. And I went this past Friday to pick up the grill, and when I went in, you could see that the place is being demolished. And I thought, what is going on? I knew you were remodeling some bathrooms, but what's going on? He said, well, we had a roof leak. And when the roof leaked, it got mold in the drywall, and we're going to have to pull all the drywall, and we're going to have to rebuild a lot of this church. And it broke my heart for him, because in the middle of this pandemic, they're hurting financially right now. They're not bringing in the money they were bringing in before. They're holding their own, but now they've got this expensive renovation that's got to be done. And I looked at him, I said, Eddie, how can I help? He said, can you get some people and come down here and just help us remove some walls, tear out some walls? So, this coming Saturday, I'm going to be down there at the Southside Church of Christ. And if you'd like to join me, I'm taking Bryce Reed and Matthew Reed, if he doesn't have to work. He's going too. He doesn't know it yet, but he just found out. That's what happens when I adopt you as one of my kids. You just get told what to do. But we're going to be down there, and we're going to be helping pull drywall down. We're going to be doing whatever we can for about 3 or 4 hours down there. And we're going to be the Good Samaritan that day. And I'm inviting you to put your faith and your knowledge of Jesus Christ to work for your brothers and sisters in Christ at Southside. If you can do it, if you're able to be there, please let me know so that I can make sure that they know you're coming and we can have everything lined out. I'm going down Friday to get everything lined out, so please let me know if you can be there. Shaq's already kind of bummed you out with the lesson title today, and the lesson title comes from Hee Haw. And I tried to get Shaq to sing that for you today, but he would not do it. And the reason why he would not do it is he did not have one of those jugs to blow into. Now, if you are of my age and maybe a few years younger, you remember Hee Haw. Some of you girls here are looking at me like, what are you talking about? Google it, okay? You're missing American culture at its finest. Actually, what I think is so funny about Hee Haw is it was created by Canadians. Isn't that great? It was created by Canadians. Most people don't know that. And for me, I'll just let y'all know, when I was watching Hee Haw, I would rather be watching the Monkees. And yes, y'all can Google the Monkees and see who they were too. But those were the two shows that were going on, and my mom and dad made me watch Hee Haw. And the song was just 3 lines. It was gloom, despair, and agony on me. Deep, dark depression, excessive misery. If it weren't for bad luck, I'd have no luck at all. Gloom, despair, and agony on me. That was the whole song. And it came on, and people laughed, and they thought it was great. And as a kid, I thought, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. But let me say this to you. Depression isn't funny for those that are dealing with it. Depression is a killer of men's and women's souls. And the only reason why I want to deal with this today, and you'll see it in your lesson notes, I was struck by the fact that they came out and they said, and I don't know who they are, but I'm sure they know what they're talking about because they always do. But they were saying that over 1/3 of America is dealing with depression and anxiety right now because of the pandemic and things going on in the world. And I want you to realize that, because you may be thinking, Neal, I don't need a lesson on depression. I need a lesson on how to take what money I have and make it count. You may need, but let me tell you this. If you're in this world, you're going to run into people that are dealing with depression. And if you run into people that are dealing with depression, you need to have biblical answers for them. And the reason why I want this lesson to go today is because some of you are stuck at home. You've been stuck at home for a long time. I know that my in-laws are dealing with a little bit of depression because they're not able to go anywhere. My mother-in-law in particular. That's where Nancy is today. She's up with her family this week. So a lot of this stuff that's going on in the world today, we as Christians need to be able to answer. If you've got your lesson notes, let's open them up and let's look inside and let's talk about. Depression is not a new problem. Depression is not something new. It's not just because we've got a pandemic. It's not just because we live in this society. I think it's become more prevalent because of our society. I think it's become more prevalent because of some of the issues that we're dealing with, but it's not a new issue. If you look at Psalms chapter 42 and verse 5, it says, "Why are you downcast, O my soul? Why so dismayed within me?" David was dealing with depression way back when he was living on this earth. So depression is not something that is new. And number two, it's a universal problem. It has nothing to do with your race. It has nothing to do with your sex. It has nothing to do with how you were raised. Depression is universal. I love the quote I've got in here from Charles Spurgeon. And in case you don't know who Charles Spurgeon is, he was called the Prince of Preachers. And a lot of preachers today look to him for advice and things like that. And he says, before any great achievement comes major depression usually comes upon me. Before any great achievement, some major depression usually comes upon me, and that's from Charles Spurgeon. And the reason why I know this is not just something that Charles Spurgeon deals with, there was a professor at Freed-Hardeman University that I was very well respected Bible class teacher. He was a preacher, and he was also a Bible class teacher at Freed-Hardeman, and I never had the opportunity to take a course from him, and it's probably because my father and him were such good friends, I didn't want him to tell my father what I was doing or not doing. But Dow Flatt suffered from depression, and the last time that I saw him, he and I had a talk about depression and how the meds that he was taking were helping him with his depression and what he was dealing with. I sat in a room full of preachers up in Detroit, Michigan. There was about 20 of them in there. And I did a talk on depression, very similar to this right here, because I know a lot of preachers deal with depression. In the room of 20 preachers, 15 admitted to dealing with some kind of depression. And some of them were even on medication. And so when I was looking at this lesson, when I was thinking about that, I was realizing that this depression is a universal problem. And you know, Winston Churchill suffered from depression. And I can tell you this from personal experience, I suffer from depression sometimes. You say, well, Neal, how do you suffer from depression? We see you get up there and you preach and you seem to have a lot of energy and you have a love for the Lord. Why is it that you think you suffer from depression? It's because I know what depression looks like. I've seen it in my father. And the reason why I'm telling you this and the reason why I'm confessing this to you is because sometimes people look like they're fine and everything is going well, but they're dealing with a state of depression. And in that state of depression, you may not see it unless you're close to them. One of the things that Nancy will do for me from time to time is she'll know when I'm starting to get depressed, and she'll stop me and she'll say, Are you depressed? And I'll have to stop and think, because sometimes you don't even think that you're depressed. You just think that things are going bad. Reason why I want you to do this is because, I want you to understand this, is because most of us are thinking in our minds, why would God's people ever get depressed? Why in the world would somebody that preaches the gospel, why would somebody that's a world leader get depressed? Why would somebody that's teaching at Freed-Hardeman University as a Bible class teacher, why would any of these people get depressed? They have a lot going for them. They have a lot going on. Why in the world would they get depressed? Well, the first reason is we believe that God has let us down. We get depressed sometimes because we believe that God has let us down. Some way, some fashion, some form, God has let us down. And it doesn't really matter that maybe God hasn't let us down. It's how you're feeling about God has let us down. Look at what Jeremiah says. "O Lord, you have deceived me, and I was deceived, and you overpowered and prevailed." You see, Jeremiah, the great prophet of God, felt like that God had let him down. As a matter of fact, when you read this story in its entirety, it is pretty depressing, amen? And I don't think that we should negate it because we don't want people to think, oh, we're happy and we've got all this great stuff going on. We don't ever want to talk about depression. Depression is real, and it happens to Christian leaders just as well as it happens to Christians. Number two, we experience repeated rejection and criticism. We experience repeated rejection and criticism. A lot of us in the room today are dealing with bosses that are that way. I have a friend, and she finally quit her job, but it was just, you could see it coming because her boss was continuing to criticize and reject what she was doing. When she was doing the very thing everybody else seemed to be doing, she was getting criticized, she was getting rejected. Some of you are getting that way at home. You're getting rejected and you're getting criticism at home, and you just don't know how to deal with it anymore. Some of you are dealing with that with your friends, and it may be family members that are doing that to you. But there are times where you're going to feel like you're getting rejected and criticism repeatedly. Jeremiah says, "I am ridiculed all day long. Everyone mocks me." When I read this, I think of a little rhyme that I learned when I was a kid. "Nobody likes me, everybody hates me, I'm going to go eat worms." Some of you have heard that. Some of you have sung that. That's exactly what is right. Everybody hates me. I remember one time I was having to go to something and I didn't want to go to it, and I looked at my mother and I said, "I don't want to go. All those people hate me." And she says, "Well, do you really think that this person hates you?" Well, maybe not. Maybe hate's a strong word there, but they don't like me. And she continued on, and she made me realize, even at a young age, that when I didn't feel good about myself, a lot of times it was because of me, not because of what was going on. It's like the fella that got up, his wife was trying to wake him up and said, "You got to get up, you got to get ready for church." And he says, "I don't want to go to church today. I want to stay home in bed." And she says, "No, we got to get up and go." He says, "But no, none of those people really like me." And she says, "But you still have to go because you're the preacher." So look at what he says next. "I hear many whisperings, terror on every side. Report him, let's report him. All my friends," listen to this, "all my friends are waiting for me to slip, saying, perhaps he will be deceived, then we will prevail him and take out our revenge on him." What kind of friends are that? Well, the third thing is sometimes we assume that no one understands. We assume that no one understands what we're going through. And there's a lot of times when people will come to me and they will tell me of their circumstance, and I'll be honest with you, I don't understand. I've never experienced that. But I can tell you this, while I don't understand, there may be someone who does understand. I will never understand completely being a single mother, but I know women who do. I will never understand losing a child, but I know people who do. I will never understand getting the news. Well, I say I'll never understand. I don't understand at this point getting the news that I have terminal cancer, but I know people who have heard that. A lot of times what Satan wants to do to us is he wants us to make us feel alone and isolated. I want you to hear that. Satan wants us to feel alone and isolated, because that's when he can do some of his best work on us. And I know there are a lot of people that are watching online that are not getting out. My parents have just done a tremendous job. They have their groceries delivered. They have their grandkids and their two sons that live nearby. They have them take care of things for them. They do the social distancing when people come over. They're inside. People are outside. They don't go out to eat. They don't go to anywhere except for church. That's the only place they go. And one of the things my mom told me while I was talking to her one day is she said, you know, we're doing this and we're doing this and we're doing this and we're staying safe, but it really doesn't feel like we're living. And that's isolation and that's loneliness. And I know that sometimes you can be in a crowd this big or even bigger and still feel isolated and alone. And right now, for those of you who are at home and you're dealing with this social distancing, the isolation and everything else that goes on, you're feeling very alone. Well, what does this depression do? Depression can lead to some things, and I want you to see here. Number one, depression can lead to bitterness. Depression can lead to bitterness. It says, "Cursed be the day I was born. May the day my mother bore me not be blessed." And there's a lot of times when you're feeling bitterness in your life, when you're feeling like this world isn't fair anymore and things are not going right, a lot of times that could very well be because of the depression and the isolation and the loneliness you're feeling. The second thing that happens is you get angry. You get angry, and that's just really something hard for people to understand. How can a depressed and lonely person get angry? Well, they do, and the reason why they do is because they're angry at their circumstances. I've told you this before, but this is so important right now. This is so important because I've seen and heard and I've had people say and do some very hurtful things to other people during this time. And you need to understand this. Hurt people hurt people. Hurt people hurt people. Here's the way I like to explain it when I'm talking to people. It's Matthew Reed. He's sitting down front. So if Matthew Reed, he's feeling like this right now. He's coming along and he's feeling pretty good about himself and life is going pretty good. And I'm down here. I'm not feeling quite as good as Matthew. I'm not having as good a day as Matthew. So I'm going to try to dig away at Matthew until I can get him down here. Then I can feel better about the way I feel. And a lot of times people hurt people. It's not because they don't love you. It's not because they're just mean people. It's because they're hurting themselves. And anger is a big part of that hurt. And you need to realize that's a symptom of the anger. Number three, the third thing we do is we withdraw from loved ones. I love this right here. For he did not kill me in the womb, with my mother as my grave, her womb enlarged forever. Now, I cannot even imagine talking about my mother that way. I mean, that's pretty sad. I just wish that God had killed me in the womb and my mom just had to walk around with a big belly up for the rest of her life. That's basically what he's saying. I will say there's been times when I was younger and I would say, I wish I'd never been born. Anybody ever thought that? Anybody want to raise their hand? A few people. The rest of you are lying. Everybody at times, mine was generally when I was in trouble with my mom and dad, and I knew I was going to get it. How many of you in here got beat every day besides me? I think I got beat. Are there somebody got beat every day? Matthew, I know you didn't get beat every day. I only beat you every other day. So, but, I was always in trouble. And when I was getting in trouble for doing something wrong, I would think to myself, man, I wish I was never born. This is not a fun life right now. And that's exactly what he was saying. And that's what's causing you to withdraw from loved ones. If you've got somebody in your family and they're being withdrawn from you, you might want to consider whether or not they're being depressed. And number 4, dwelling on death and possibly suicide. It's why did I ever come out of the womb to see trouble and sorrow, gloom, despair, and agony on me to the end of my days in shame. Does that not sound like that song, gloom, despair, and agony on me? Why did I ever come into this world? The idea of dealing with death, one of the things that we're not hearing a lot on the news, but one of the things that's happening right now is the fact that suicides are up. And a lot of things that you need to notice in the world today, the news, the way they're reporting this, is they're reporting it from the standpoint of people are overdosing. And what overdosing could be an accidental overdose or it could be an intentional overdose. But deaths are up right now, and a lot of it has to do with the depression that they're dealing with. So what can I do? If I'm depressed today, or I know someone who is depressed today, what can we do as Christians to encourage one another? What can we do to help one another feel better? What can we do to help even get ourselves out of depression? Number 1, understand that even when God is silent, He is working in our lives. Understand that even when God is silent, He is working in our lives. I know a lot of times you have felt close to God. You felt like God was with you. God was carrying you. God was next to you. He was walking beside you and holding you up. But there's going to be times that God is silent. And God doesn't say anything. But it doesn't mean He has stopped working in our lives. So many times we feel like that we want an answer and we want it now. And for some of us who are patient, we're glad to wait a day or two. But God doesn't work like that. My favorite story from Richard Pryor is when he was talking about getting close to God and talking to God. And you, if you know who Richard Pryor is, you know that's just kind of wild just to begin with. That's the reason why I remember it. But he said he had a talk with God one day, and he asked God, he said, God, how long is 1,000,000 years to you? And God said, a second. He said, well, God, how about, what's $1 million to you? God says, a penny. So Pryor says, God, can you give me a penny? And God said, in a minute. And the reason why I love that is because our time frame and God's time frame is not the same. He is always working in your life, even when you don't see it, even when you don't feel it. God doesn't take naps. You need to remember that, because sometimes we think that God has taken a nap and he's just kind of letting everything go for a little while, and he'll wake up in a little bit and he'll figure it out. God's not asleep right now. As a matter of fact, you know who I think is asleep? We are. We have been given the opportunity of a lifetime as a church, as a people, as God's children right now, to express and to show God's love to the world. And most of us are taking our candle and we're hiding it under a bushel. And nobody's seeing our light. Look at what it says, but the Lord is with me like a mighty warrior, so my persecution will stumble and not prevail. They will fall and he will and be thoroughly disgraced. Their dishonor will never be forgotten. The second point you need to know is regardless of how things may seem, regardless of how things may seem, never stop talking to God. Regardless of how things may seem to you right now, never stop talking to God. You see, God created you and me for a relationship. He created me and you to have a conversation with Him. You say, that's not right, Neil. Yeah, it is. Look, go back to the book of Genesis. What did Jesus do? He created Adam and Eve so that he could have a relationship with them. They broke it. The relationship was broken. So what does he do? He sends his son to this earth so that we can have a relationship. He promised his Spirit to live inside of us. This is amazing stuff if you want to really think about it. I was talking with Sydney Heaton the other day, and she's doing a study called Good Religion, Bad Religion. And boy, man, do I want to get in on that class. But she was asking me, about a paper she was having to write, and I began to think about this. When you think of all the religions in the world, you think of all the ways the religions of the world have us get to heaven. And it's all on us. It's all on what we do. And if we work hard enough, God will allow us into His paradise. But here's the thing. God wants us in His paradise. He paid the price so that we could have the relationship. And see, I was listening to the radio the other day, and there was a gospel singer on there, and he says, what is it you're looking forward to the most about heaven? And here's what he said: I want to see the face of Jesus. And I thought, man, that is such a good answer. I'm going to write that one down so if somebody asks me, I'll know what to say. But when you have that kind of relationship, you want to see their face. In a couple, next week, not this week, but the following week, I'm going to leave and I'm going to go out to Idaho, and I am looking forward to it so much. Both of my boys are going to be there, and we're going to have a grand time. And I know that I talk to them on the phone, 2 or 3 times a week. I know we have these grand discussions and things like that. But there's something about seeing their face that's just so grand to me. And I'm looking forward to that. But I'm still looking more forward to the day where I can stand before a holy God and He can say to me, well done, thy good and faithful servant. Because this life is not always easy, is it? But there's going to come a day when we see our reward and we get our reward, and we'll know that that relationship we had with God will be forever. So regardless of how bad things may seem, never stop talking to God. Number 3, remember God's promises. Remember God's promises. It says, sing to the Lord, give praise to the Lord. He rescues the life of the needy from the hands of the wicked. He rescues the needy from the hands of the wicked. This past week, like I said, Nancy's gone to visit her mom and dad, and she's told this to several people, so I'm sure she won't mind me telling it to you, but she got up Monday, and I had already left the house before she had started work. She got up, and she'd been sitting at the same desk every day since this whole thing started, doing 8 hours there in front of that. And, you know, she likes working from home, but you ever get to the point where you just say, I've had enough? Well, she got to that point that morning. This was Monday morning. Usually it happens on Friday. But Monday morning, she's looking at the computer screen, and she's getting ready to start her day, and she opens up an email, and she says to herself, I can't do this anymore. I am so done. I am so over this. Oh, my goodness. I need some time with Jesus. So she got her songbook that I had there, and she got the songbook, and she went into our laundry room because it echoes in there. And she began to sing praises and pray to God. She did that for about 15, 20 minutes, and then went back to work and had a wonderful day. When we praise God for His promises, when we know that He has not forsaken us, it puts a whole spin on what we're doing and how it's going. My message for you today is twofold. Number one, if you think you're dealing with some depression, go to God's Word. Don't go to the news. Stay in God's Word until you feel better. Nancy sang until she felt better. You may need to sing until you feel better. If you're not dealing with depression, look around for those who need to be cheered up, who need to be encouraged, who need to have a smile given to them. I love the fact that when you see people now, you're wearing a mask and you say, I'm smiling. I know some of you have even drawn smiles on your face so it looks like you're smiling all the time, or it looks like you're a stick figure with a funny mouth. I don't know what that is. But the point being is everybody can use some encouraging words. Everybody can use someone showing them that they care. Well, that's the lesson for today. If you'd like to respond in some way, please come as we stand and sing.